Welcome, everybody, to this week's live stream. I have a couple of apologies to make. Last week, we didn't have a live stream because I was in San Antonio. I had to go to the States. Plus, it was the Super Bowl, so I didn't want to mess up anybody's Super Bowl weekend. I forgot to put I was gonna, in the process of putting the community chat, but we will continue with our weekly live streams. And good morning, Blaine. Good morning, Kai. Flying SGP. How are you doing? Also, my other apology was that I forgot to take those first 5 minutes out of the last live stream, and I also forgot to put that link that I had promised to put for you all. And I will do that hopefully soon, probably today. But today, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start a new trend, I think, because we talked about. I'm gonna let more people get into the room, but the last time I think I talked about these live streams that I was gonna try to do a topic instead of just keeping it open to ask me anything. You can still ask me anything. It hasn't changed, but what I am gonna do is touch on a topic like I did last week. But what I think I'm gonna do, and I figured this would be a great thing to do, would be to touch on a topic based on a video that I had done. So what I'm going to do today, I'm doing Retired Life in Mexico, no bull, ask me anything, weekly live stream, Mexico Travel Safety 101. If you remember, about 2 weeks ago, I did a video about the trucker strike and how the truckers were complaining about insecurity on the roads and how they were threatening to blockade a lot of the major highways. And I do have an update on that. So what I figured I would do is do a live stream. So what I'm going to do, if you noticed, yesterday I did a video about cost of living. So what we'll do is we'll let the video run a week. And once we let the video run a week, I will do a live stream next week about the cost of living. And hey, Lambden, how's it going? Well, Fredo joined us today, and my beautiful wife, too, joined us today. She took time out of her breakfast this morning with her friends. I'm going to do this so that I can do follow-up questions, maybe explain myself a little bit more if I've done a video. I try to keep my videos kind of under the 10-minute mark. I try to keep them to 3 or 4 minutes so you can grab the information and not have to have too much of an attention span listening to me. But so what I'm going to do is do these things so that I can follow up, or something that I forgot to mention. Hey, Anna, how are you doing? Something I forgot to mention maybe in the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the travel tips today, because I did a video about safety on the road and the truckers union. Hold on just 1 second. I'm going to take a drink. So the truckers union actually has been in this kind of, to explain the whole situation to you guys, excuse me, the truckers union has been in a kind of an argument with the government that's saying that there's been a lot of hijackings. There's been a lot of robberies on the major highways. So the truckers union is basically asking the government, please help us out. Help us out in securing the highways. And apparently the government hasn't been able to do that. So the truckers are threatening to blockade all the major highways. Now, there was supposedly an agreement that was made with several truckers unions, but apparently there's other truckers unions that are trying, there's different syndicates, they call them sindicatos here, or truckers unions, and some went with the agreement, some didn't. And so right after my video, right around the time of my video, they decided to do a peaceful protest And the government also guaranteed the Mexican citizens that nobody was going to get blocked. There's not going to be any blockades. We made an agreement with the government, I mean, with the unions, and don't worry about it. But what has happened since? They did protest in peace. Nobody got blocked, but there has been some blockades. Now, those blockades haven't really affected expat travel. Maybe if some of you have been affected, but I do know that it's affected the route from San Miguel to, from Mexico City to San Miguel. We have several friends that have reported that they couldn't get to San Miguel from Mexico City because the roads have been blocked. What's the significance of all of this? I'm going to tell you guys what the significance of all of this is. First of all, this is the government acknowledging that there is safety issues on the highways. This is the truckers union saying there are incidents that happen. Now, you're going to say, well, this is the truckers union. These are trucks getting stolen or goods getting stolen off of trucks. But this is not just a truckers union. There's been a lot of, I've done a lot of reporting on robberies on Highway 57. I do know expats that have had issues on Highway 2, the small stretch in Nuevo Laredo that goes towards the Columbia Bridge. I do know, I even have dash cam footage, or I don't have it, but I've seen dash cam footage being posted by some expats on the road to Columbia Bridge. So there is some insecurity on the roads. Now, I don't want to scare everybody because here's the thing. Anywhere in the world, like I've always told everybody, can be insecure. So I wouldn't, at this point, I wouldn't really, it's not that I would, here's what I always preach. You want to take safety precautions. The problem that I see a lot of times, and I've done these Mexico are dangerous videos and everything else, but the thing is I always get this reaction that, oh, well, I feel safer in Mexico than the United States. Well, the United States has drive-by shootings and everything else. Now, let me tell you something. Statistics-wise, and I actually did in my last video talking about statistics. Statistics don't really paint the true picture. For example, the homicide rate here in Mexico is higher than the homicide rate per 100,000 in the United States. But if you look at the picture, the violent crimes against foreigners is a very small amount, if any, of that homicide rate. So there's kind of the statistics and the reality. The reality is, are you safe here in Mexico? Well, if you take the proper precautions, you're safe here in Mexico. Are you safe in New York? Yeah, if you take the proper precautions, you'll probably be safe in New York City. Are you going to be safer from a mass shooting here in Mexico than in the United States? Well, let me tell you something. Being in the wrong place at the wrong time, like at a mass shooting, is just the same as being in the wrong place at the wrong time if there's violence here in Mexico. So let's get off the statistics and just talk about what you can do to make your trip safe. That's one of the things that I want to say is that if you take precautions, you'll be fine. More than likely, 99%. You still have that 1% chance that you're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not going to lie to you. But at the same time, if you take certain precautions, you know, the problem that we have when we talk about danger in Mexico is you have two sides of the fence. You have the side of the fence that has all these stereotypes of Mexico and cartels and everything else, and that it's, oh my God, dangerous. Talk to some of my coworkers. They won't even come into Mexico because of the things that they have seen doing investigations, but or my ex-coworkers, and they won't even come and visit me here in Mexico because and the first question I always get is, well, my God, isn't it so dangerous? You know, the thing is my answer is always, Mexico can be dangerous or it can be safe. It's you that make it safe or dangerous. The other side of the coin is I see very many YouTubers coming on and, oh my God, they make Mexico sound really bad. Well, I even had one or two videos where they even have people that have drove down to Mexico. Well, did you see any cartel? Did you see any? Oh my God, people make a big deal out of how dangerous it is. And they try to minimize that and say that it's totally safe. And then you have Facebook people that are saying, well, I feel totally safe. The problem with these, I feel totally safe, or nothing happened to me, or I'm doing a video and look at these people, they traveled all the way through Sinaloa and nothing happened, so it must be safe. The problem with that is we build a false sense of security and we assume it's safe. We are not as alert as we might want to be. And I'm telling you, you need to practice these things no matter where you go. If you travel in the world to Europe, you're going to take certain precautions. We were just talking, I had some friends from the neighborhood here in Monterrey. We were talking, they're going to Europe. And the pickpockets on the subway are very, very famous. So they bought special belts to put their passports in their wallets. See, these are the things that you need to be aware of. These are precautions that my neighbors are going to take so they don't get mugged, or they don't put anything in your back pocket, because when you get on the subways there in Europe or in the train in certain areas, as a matter of fact, they use little kids to distract you and you don't even feel them taking your wallet out of your pocket. So no matter where you travel, you have to take these precautions. And I've given these precautions for traveling in Mexico on the highways, and I'm going to go over them again. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If we have any more questions about, of course, ask me anything. I'm going to go into that. But we need to stress that instead of answering the question, is Mexico dangerous? Well, yeah, it is. Is it safe? Yeah, it is. It's both. Okay, there is no black and white answer. One thing I stressed in my last video about cost of living is there's no black or white answers here in Mexico. We're very used to black and white answers. We're very used to, and we also love drama. That's the other problem that we have as foreigners. We love drama. So the more controversial something is, the more I see these arguments on Facebook, and I always talk about how Facebook can get so mean. Well, it's because it's all the drama that's happening on Facebook. Look at all these. As a matter of fact, I look at some of these YouTube. I'm not talking about Mexico YouTubers, but some of these creators that try to advise YouTubers on how to get more views. They talk about your thumbnail, how your thumbnail needs to get the attention of the person so they'll watch your video. And what I've noticed a lot of times, especially here in Mexico, is it's like this big controversial thumbnail. Mexico's too expensive for you right now, or, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. The financial requirements have gone up. I mean, I've done it. I've even been accused of doing it. And I even said, yeah, that's the way YouTube works. It's clickbait. But it's because we're so addicted to that drama. We want to see what the controversy is behind the thumbnail. And we need to get away from that controversy. And yes, I do it to catch your attention, to get a video out. But the thing is that you need to get the point of the video instead of getting stuck into the drama, because a lot of times people just look at my thumbnail and they make comments and start arguing without even watching the video. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we need to think of safety not as, is Mexico dangerous? Or is it not dangerous? Is it safe in Mexico? Am I safe in Mexico? No. Or is it safer here than it is in the United States or in Canada? What we need to do is get away from that. Get away from it. Forget about it. Forget about we're safer. Forget about I feel safer here. I feel safer here, but I don't let that get in the way of me taking precautions, me doing the things that I need to do. The problem is, and I'll tell you, being in law enforcement for many years, I'm going to tell you about being a victim of a crime. One of the things, and if you look at statistically, 99% of the time or 90% of the time being a victim of a crime, unless it's certain crimes that you know the perpetrator or whatever, being the victim of a crime is just being the wrong place at the wrong time, being the wrong house that the robber picks to rob, being at the wrong event when there's a mass shooting, being at the wrong nightclub when there's a mass shooting. And, you know, you hear all these arguments, but the problem is it really does come down to being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But if you can try to mitigate not being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or you try to do certain things to be more alert so that if you see signs that maybe you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you can get out of it before it actually happens. And so that's what I'm here to tell you today. I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to tell you Mexico, you know, I'm going to tell you Mexico's safe or Mexico's dangerous, but that all depends on you, whether you make it safe or you make it dangerous. There's certain places that you don't want to travel here in Mexico, just for the sake of not traveling. There's certain things that you want to do. And these are my basic steps in advice on traveling through Mexico. First of all, keep an eye on the news. If there is road blockades, maybe I might not be able to get a video out in time, or maybe I'm not paying attention to the news because I have a lot of things that I do. Like I said, I do this for free and I have a life, an actual life. YouTube is not my life. And YouTube is not my job. I don't make money off of this. So, you know, I'm not constantly worried about the YouTube algorithm or how many viewers I get or how many subscribers I get. So sometimes maybe I might not be up to date totally. And maybe the trucker strike happened yesterday and the blockades happened yesterday. By the time I get a video out today, it's already happened. So my advice is to always, and you know, there's several major news outlets here. You can find them on Instagram, on Facebook. They all have Facebook pages. They all have Instagram pages. The North is El Norte, which covers all the news in the North if you're coming towards the border. And, you know, if you look at those news, you can go into your browser and you can put translate in most browsers. I know Chrome has it, and it'll pretty much translate 90% of the articles into something that you can kind of understand. Not all the time does it translate it correctly, but that's the first thing to do. And when you know, I even talk about this. I'm not an expert. I'm just a person that my wife and I keep up with the news of what's going on in Mexico. We have contacts. I have contacts within the legal community through my brother-in-law, who's a lawyer, and he also has a whole network of lawyers, very prestigious lawyers that I consult through my brother-in-law. I have facilitators that I keep in consistent contact with. Those are the things that I do so that I can keep you guys up to date. It's not a secret sauce. I'm not an expert. I might know a lot about Mexico, but that's because I try to keep informed. And that's what you guys need to do too, is try to keep informed. And the first place is the news outlets. So you can see if something's going on in Laredo. You can see if there's been, most of the stuff that has happened in Laredo, a lot of times it's behind the arrest of a major drug cartel figure. The truck cartels are trying to get back. Maybe there's an increase in robberies because of the vacation or holiday season. Those types of things. So the first thing is the news. Make sure you keep up with the news. The second thing is, and actually more importantly, never get a false sense of security. One of the other false senses of security, other than I feel safer here, is that, oh, I'm an American, I got U.S. plates, or I'm a Canadian, I got Canadian plates. They won't touch me. That's not true. I can give you stories, and I've already said stories of people driving U.S. plated vehicles, and they have had some issues. And I had one friend taken behind a gas station, and they had plates, U.S. plates, and they were taken behind a gas station, put on their knees with a gun to their head. So It happens. Okay. So those are the things. Never get a false sense of security. Never think. And then the first thing is to monitor the news. Okay. The second thing is, I always say this, is always find somebody that you can keep in contact with. Best thing always is to have a cell phone, even if it's a prepaid cell phone. Hold on just one second. Excuse me. For those of you that are new to the stream, I have to take drinks of water every once in a while because of my cancer that I had in my head and my neck, and so I don't produce saliva like normal. And then I have to mute the microphone because it was brought to my attention that the microphone picks up me drinking water, and it's pretty annoying sound. So you have to excuse me for a second. But we need to we're hold on, I almost lost myself. But after the news, what we need to do is that we need to keep in contact with a friend. If you can get a prepaid SIM card, even if it's a SIM card prepaid, to have some type of cell phone service. I know the iPhone has, through iMessage, has a way of sharing your location. WhatsApp, which is very popular here in Mexico, has a way of sharing your location, your live location. And now you're not always going to have cell service. So what we always tell people is, and also you're not always going to have data. So you might not, your live location might be stuck somewhere and your friends may get concerned because you're off the radar per se for a little while. And I always say, make a phone call. Okay, most of these plans, even if your friend is in the United States or somewhere else, most of these plans have international calling free to the United States and Canada. Make a phone call. I'm okay. We do this with our in-laws all the time. We call them when we leave. We call them when we're halfway. We call them to certain places. We call them maybe every hour to let them know. We share our location. We use, actually, I know a lot of people have an issue, but we use an app called Live 360 where we have a circle. We are okay with, I know there's several people that might have privacy concerns, so that's why I bring up WhatsApp. But basically, there's certain people in our family that know where we're at all the time, as long as we take our phone with us. So those are things that we do. For example, I'll give you an example, a perfect example. This morning, my wife went to breakfast with some friends. My mother-in-law called her to say good morning and everything else. They have the daily call, and my mother-in-law got concerned because my wife's not answering her phone because she's off having breakfast. She forgot to tell her mother that she was having breakfast. So her mother-in-law immediately contacted me. Is everything okay? You know, my daughter's not answering. And that is where I'm trying to get to. If you have somebody that you're in constant communication with that can say, hey, so-and-so's not answering, or call another family friend, contact the embassy if you're not answering, or at the same time, you need to keep in contact with them at all times. Hey, I'm sorry I lost cell phone signal. I'm letting you know I'm okay. And also being alert, sticking with traffic, not getting isolated. Now, a lot of people have told me that, well, you know, I only drive at 60 miles an hour. I'm a little bit, you know, I don't drive at 100 because I see a lot of people on the expressway. I mean, I can't keep up with traffic here. And it's true. People here drive very, very fast and aggressive. But as long as you're within a really good distance of surrounding people. The other thing is always stop. When you stop at gas stations, don't stop at an isolated gas station where you don't see anybody, you don't see any customers. We have certain, on our trips between here and San Miguel, we have certain gas stations, the major ones, the big ones with 5 or 6 restaurants, and you see tons of cars and we stop at those gas stations because even though they might have lookouts or whatever, you're more likely to not be in trouble if you stick with the traffic and stick where people hang out. These are also very good safety tips no matter where you go. It doesn't matter if you're here in Mexico or not. So you stay with traffic, you keep in contact with somebody, and you also, and not in this order, I'm going in reverse order, and you also keep track of the news, and you don't build a false sense of security, because when you build a false sense of security, you say, I'm safe, I'm traveling on the toll roads, so I should be safe. No, don't build a false sense of security. Just always assume that it's going to be dangerous no matter what. And I don't mean to say paranoid. To be paranoid, assume. I mean to assume in the sense of you need to stay alert at all times. And so I use those in reversed order. Now, the next thing that I want to tell you is, and there's something very important about the toll roads, okay? Always travel on the toll road. And I'm going to tell you that there's some very important reasons to always travel on the toll road other than safety. I don't know if you guys know this or anybody's ever told you this, but that when you pay the toll and you get that little ticket, now some of you use the tu pase or we use the automatic. We don't get a ticket, but it's automatically on our account. But when you pay that toll, oh, wow, congratulations, Cindy Cozumel, just subscribed. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, if you're watching this. But what we're going to, Rhonda, how are you doing? In jet lag? Haven't said hello this morning. What you want to do is save that little receipt. When you pay the toll on a toll road, you get insurance. If you get in a major fatal car accident, basically there's insurance that covers you for that major fatal car accident. This is very important, especially if you're on Medicaid or Medicare, don't have private health care insurance. If you get in a major accident, you are covered. The other reason why this insurance is important is because the government and the people that own the toll roads have a vested interest in keeping that toll road secure, because there is insurance on that toll road. You have like an insurance policy. So remember, don't throw away that little receipt. That's the most important part. But that's number one of the most important part. And the other most important part is always travel on toll roads when you can, because you have that insurance, and it's normally, I would say, probably 100% safer than it is on the Libre. Now, you may have to travel some of the free roads to get to the toll road. For example, when you're coming from Monterrey, there's a stretch on highway, I think it's Highway 2, that goes towards the Columbia Bridge, where it's a free road, but that's where all the problems happen. So you always want to try to stick to toll roads. Sometimes Google Maps will try to make you take the free road. When we go to San Miguel from Monterrey, it always tries to make us take the exit going on the Libre. When it says Libre, if you see a sign that says San Luis Potosí Libre, and then another San Luis, like on the other side with a highway sign, don't take the Libre, even if Google Maps tells you to take the Libre. You always take the toll roads. And I think in your GPS application, you can also say, don't put avoid tolls. Check that off. Make sure that you always keep your preferred method as tolls. So you want to take the toll road. And last but not least, you want to be very, very alert. Here's a thing that I'm going to give you a trick of the tool of the trade when you talking about being followed. One of the secrets to being followed, not secrets to being followed, but to detect if you're being followed, is if you see the same car or the same person separated by time and distance. Okay, I don't know if this makes sense. In other words, let's say you're driving down the road in back of you is a Ford Bronco with no plates or whatever plates. And then the Bronco kind of disappears, or they get way far behind you. You stop for some gas, and 30 minutes later, you see the same Bronco behind you. More than likely, you're being followed. Okay. Now, if it's a matter of the Broncos on the same road, they stop at the same place, you have to kind of determine that yourself. But the other thing that we look for when we get close to the border, especially with cars behind us, are cars that don't have license plates. Now, you will see this is very common on the border towns. A lot of cars don't have license plates, but that's one of the things that that you want to look for. Also, suspicious activity, the car sticking close to you can be that you're followed. And I will tell you, and I'm not going to lie to you, we've traveled several times and we have been followed. The other thing that you need to look out for, and especially in places like Laredo, especially if you want to go through town, and normally if you go through Laredo, there's a police escort, but there's what we call choke points. Choke points are places where you might stop, where somebody can get out and, where you're forced to stop, like at a stoplight or whatever. There's certain places in some of these towns where you'll get inundated with people trying to, let me wash your windows. Let me wash your windows. Please give me. And a lot of them, they're asking you for pesos, or they're looking in your car. Give me those potato chips. I haven't eaten for a week. 90% of that, and I'm telling you right now, we experience it every time we go to Mexico and we come back, and there's a certain stoplight that if we have to stop, I mean, they just get around your car. Ignore them. They'll even wash your windows and be like, look, I washed your windows. 90% of that is not because they're looking for 10 pesos or 20 pesos. They're looking inside your vehicle to see what you have. They're looking to see if you have a bunch of suitcases. They're looking to see if you have any items that are worth robbing, because down the road they can get on their cell phone and say, hey, there's a white Bronco that's it's loaded with good stuff. So those are the things, especially when you're coming into Mexico, not necessarily when you're going out. But also you want to be careful also at checkpoints. You'll run into a checkpoint and you'll run into all these people that'll come, especially if they start coming to your window and they start looking in and trying to sell you something. Normally they're trying to look in to see. So even coming towards the border, you can experience this. Those are the things that you want to look for. Now, you can't avoid it. People are going to look in your car. You can't avoid it. But after that, be very aware of the surroundings. Basically, hey, someone was looking into my car. I don't know if they were looking in my car for good reasons or they really wanted money. So just be a little bit more alert. Sometimes I've even been to the point where if I see a car that looks suspicious, we have a car that's very potent, we take off. I take off at 90 miles an hour if I have to, and I lose them. And if they keep up with me at 90 miles an hour, then I know that they're trying to follow me. Most of the times, sometimes they'll keep up, and then sometimes they'll just make a U-turn. So those are things that you need to make sure that you do. But if you do all of that stuff, hey, a lot of times what I don't think people understand here in Mexico, because hey, I feel safe. I've traveled these roads a bunch of times. I passed through Laredo 100 times. But do you realize how many times you were probably being followed, or how many times people were scoping you out? You don't realize that. And unless you're aware of it, unless you have training, like I have some training on how to tell those types of things, and it's not training, it's common sense. So just be aware of those things. And if you're aware of those things, you make sure that that everything will be okay. And let me see. Let's look at Wilfredo here. And I guess that's my tips on how to stay safe here in Mexico. and you shouldn't have a problem. You should be fine, and just avoid being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm taking a trip to bring stuff from my house in Arlington to my house in Querétaro in middle of March. Hope they solve it by then. I hope this truckers dispute is solved by then. I will keep track if there is some more blockades. There have been blockades. Actually, it never made it to the news. And the only way I found out about the blockades was because we had some friends that were trying to get to San Miguel from Mexico City, and they couldn't because the truckers had blocked the place. A lot of the blockades that are happening right now are in central Mexico. It really hasn't made the major highways, or they haven't cut off the major routes yet back to the United States or vice versa that I know of. LJ, can you do a future video on aging in place in Mexico? Not an assisted living place, but a home with live-in help. LJ, actually, I can. And actually, I'll tell you what, LJ, the neighborhood I live in San Miguel, we have somebody that's in that situation. Former person that worked, he's an American, worked for NASA. Him and his wife moved to Mexico. And they're in a situation where they're aging in place. The wife has passed away. The husband is still alive, the NASA engineer that lives, he's my next door neighbor. And he has something exactly what you're looking at, or what you're asking me to do a video about. And that's a great idea. And I will do a video. There are organizations, LJ, that I don't know exactly how they work, and I'm gonna have to check into them. But they're nonprofit organizations that they dedicate. The organization dedicates themselves to you being able to spend your last years instead of in a home or an assisted living place, being able to stay at home. For example, my next door neighbor's wife was already, by the time I met her, she was already pretty much bedridden almost, in a wheelchair. And she was able to spend her last days at her house, and she passed away at her house. So these organizations, I do know that, I don't know how they do it, how they pay, but they have a live-in person that lives with them full-time, become part of the family, whole 9 yards, and he gets the best care that I've ever seen. LJ, apparently there are very strict domestic worker maid gardener laws in Mexico. You can be sued big time if you don't follow local labor law employment rules. Yes, LJ. And actually, I've been meaning to do a video about this, LJ. A lot of people I see that when you hire household help, workers have a lot of rights here in Mexico. And I've been meaning to get into that because I've been really meaning to get into this because they have this thing called Seguro Social that you have to pay Social Security, Seguro Social. But Social Security works a little bit different here. First of all, it goes into like a little pension like they get later on in Social Security pension. And it also pays for health care. Some people say, well, if this person only comes for 3 hours a week, I don't have to pay that. Yes, you do. And then there's certain things that you need to do, that you need to do, for example, during holidays. There's this thing called aguinaldo, where you pay a month's salary and then you give them so many days off. There's a lot of, and the thing about the worker laws here is if they do sue you, 90% of the time it's on the side of the worker. The courts will take the side of the worker. If you're not playing, as a matter of fact, I'll give you a perfect example. My builder, we were one day, we got home, we get this notice on our door, and it says, you must appear in court, and this was in San Miguel, you must appear in court within 10 days to explain why you didn't pay your employees that built your house Social Security. And we're like, what do we do? Luckily, my brother-in-law has a very good friend who's a lawyer for Social Security, actually one of the higher ups, one of the assistant directors of Social Security here in Mexico, and said, don't show up to court, because the minute you show up to court, you admit responsibility for the Social Security payment. The one that should have been paying Social Security is the ones that built your house. So you need to get that notice to the people that built your house, but don't show up to court. See, and those are the things that people don't understand here. You might show up to court being like, I didn't know, I bought this house pre-built. Nope, now you're responsible because you showed up to court as the responsible party. So you need to be very, very careful. It just so happens we knew who the architect was. We contacted the architect, and the architect says, yeah, just send me the notice and I'll take care of it. How he took care of it, I don't know. There's fines that you have to pay and everything else. So, Rick Brandt. Buen dia from Rick and Don. Hey, Rick, how's it going? You're going to be in San Miguel pretty soon, from what I understand, or are you already there? Ernie, people ask us if we are concerned about safety in Mexico. I ask if they're concerned about their safety in the U.S. We should all be concerned about our safety. Yes, Rick. We should all be, no matter where we're at. It doesn't matter. Like I said, we can use all the arguments in the world. I made this comment before. I've been in some of the roughest neighborhoods in the United States. Nothing ever happened to me, but I was working. And actually, I was working, so it was even more dangerous in the sense that I was doing things that, normal people don't do in those neighborhoods. And nothing happened to me. So can I say the neighborhood's safe? No. It's not a safe place. Now, when I went into those neighborhoods, we took certain precautions, just like I'm telling you to take precautions when you're traveling on the highway. And Safety 101, do things like, for example, I have an air tag on my wallet. I carry a small wallet. I carry it in a location that's very hard to take it out. It's hard for me to take it out. I mean, let me see if I can take out my wallet. I have a hard time sometimes, but I have a pair of jeans that have these small pockets, and I have this small wallet that I have all my cards in. Let me put it back in. Well, I'm going to put it here. It's kind of hard to get it in and out, but the point is, if someone's pickpocketing me, I'm going to feel them trying to get that wallet out. I always do carry my permanent residency card with me, because immigration can give you a hard time. So I have everything important in this wallet. So I make sure. So instead of saying, I'm not going to carry my permanent residency card, or I'm not going to, or what I'll do if I know that it's a dangerous place, I only carry one credit card or one debit card. I used to do that a lot in Brazil. I had a separate wallet when I traveled to Rio, because Rio is very famous for robberies. So those are things that you can do to make sure. I point out there's information as to where the Mexican cartels operate, so they stay away from those cities. In the U.S., you never know if a school, mall, church, theater, or your own neighborhood. Yeah, actually, Rick, you're right, but I'll also add on to that. I'll give you an example. Here in Monterrey, there's a store called Palacio del Hierro. That store is a very luxurious store. We're talking Louis Vuitton, Prada, Fendi, it's like where all the rich people go. We're talking the elite of the elite go shopping there here in Monterrey. Well, guess who got arrested there? One of the leaders of the Gulf Cartel. They actually arrested him inside that store. So you never know who's there. This is a store where you ride up to, and there's Ferraris, Porsches, limousines coming up to it. We went into the store. I bought my wife a purse for her birthday there, a very expensive purse. And when we were there, we're talking about the elite of Mexico are there. I mean, San Pedro, where it's located, is like the Beverly Hills of, there's Ferraris, Lamborghini. There's a Lamborghini dealership there, Ferrari, Porsche, I mean, right next door, close by. And one of the leaders of the Gulf Cartel was inside there shopping. And they took him in peace. They waited till he went to the bathroom. And they kindly said, come with us. And they probably arrested his bodyguards. He probably didn't go in with his bodyguards because it's a very luxurious place, so he probably felt safe. And they probably took his bodyguards into custody in the parking lot. So you have to be careful no matter where you go, even in the most luxurious place. And actually, believe it or not, when I bought my wife that purse, that day, on that hour that the cartel member got arrested, they had offered to put a little monogram on my wife's, the little tag, they engrave it. We were supposed to go pick up, my wife and I were supposed to go pick up the little monogram tag. And actually, the location where they arrested the guy was the bathrooms right next to the store where we bought the purse. So you'd never know. We almost ran into all the, I mean, it was peaceful and nothing happened, but we almost ran into this. And we were just kind of like, wow, thank God we didn't go. Actually, because usually when something like that happens, everything stops. You can't move, you can't leave, all of that kind of stuff. And that's exactly what happened. So that's a perfect example that no matter where you're at, so you always have to think of safety. And sometimes you just can't avoid it. You're going to be in the wrong place, just like my wife and I, and we're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, you know, I wouldn't be concerned, Rick, when people point out, hey, aren't you concerned about being in Mexico? And what I usually say is, I'm not concerned. As long as I take the same precautions that I would take if I was living in the United States or I was living anywhere else, I feel fine. But I am always conscientious of that. Rick Brandt, you're missing the point. He kindly giving a specific nature cautious for local crime in Mexico, not Detroit or New York. The all places dangerous is nonsense. Duh. Well, the thing is that we have to. It's when I say all places are dangerous, all places can be. You can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, no matter where you're at. You look at some of the mass shootings that have happened in the United States. Who would have ever thought, even the Boston Marathon bombing, I was looking at a documentary, this is what brings me up. Who would have ever thought something would have happened at the Boston Marathon? So just like I was giving the example, who would have ever thought at the most luxurious, and this is the most luxurious store in all of Mexico, who would have ever thought that the most luxurious store, they would have been arresting a leader of the Gulf Cartel from Matamoros, Mexico, in Monterrey? I mean, nobody. So you can't stay away from, and when I say, you know, when I talk about New York and I talk about Chicago and being in the worst places, I trying to stress that you can be safe even in those places if you do the right thing or stay away from them. I would be interested in that about help at home. Sure, Anna, we'll get back with you on that. Like I said, Ray Gracias from Texas. LJ, thank you so much, sir. I bet you'll get 1 million views on any video on that subject. LJ, you know, I've been meaning to really do that, but you need to remember here's the thing about Mexico. One of the things is and I need to look into these programs, but there are a lot of people that come here. They get local help. Maybe I might be able to give you some advice on how to get local help. I was just helping, I don't know if you've seen some of my feed, I was supposedly helping some Canadian nurses that were here that were doing exchanging or interchange or whatever you call it with nurses here in Mexico. And the people that they were doing interchanging with was individual students at a nursing school in San Miguel that were learning how to take care of elderly people. The only thing you need to be careful of sometimes, believe it or not, and I was speaking to one of those nurses, is they were saying that a lot of times they try to, oh, you're an American, we're going to charge you American prices, and it doesn't turn out to be very cheap. But you can get something very affordable, and you just have to look around. Wow, the Builder Notice store is a great lesson. You are a treasure trove of helpful info. Yeah, LJ, and I think a lot of stuff happens, it's all about our personal experiences. And I would have never known that I would have been responsible just by showing up to the court, the employee court. And so those are things that we need to do. Oh, I was 12 o'clock Central. Steffi, sorry you're late, but luckily I have these what do you call it? You can go back. Steffi, question. Temp residency, was planning to drive but decided to sell the car instead. Any advice on shipping small quantities of personal stuff like barrels? Steffi, there are several local moving companies, depending on where you live, that will, or even help you with shipping containers. Depends on how much stuff that you have. You have to be very careful on shipping stuff from the U.S. to Mexico. And here's where I'm saying that you have to be careful. Depending on what they are, what the stuff is, if it gets tied up in customs, I've known people that have gotten their packages tied up in customs, and that's why it's important to find somebody that'll move your stuff. There's also services such as Best Mexico Movers. They will actually pick you up. Actually, if you're going to travel, he'll go pick you up all with your stuff. I mean, he charges a fee, of course. He'll actually, where are you at? I'm in Houston, Texas. Okay, he'll drive his van all the way to Houston, Texas. He'll load your stuff in the van with you and your pets. He'll even transport your pets. He'll transport your stuff. It's bestmexicomovers.com or best. Let me see if I can find it here. It's Alfonso Galindo is the owner, and he's always busy. Best Mexico Movers. Let me see. I hope I've got the right one. Okay. Well, I actually I got another website. The other one is Best Mexico. There's Best Mexico Movers. They help move all of your stuff. And then there's a Best Mexico Pet Movers. The one that I just pulled up, the website I just pulled up sounds exactly with what my friend does here. And this is bestmexicomovers.com. And I believe my friend Alfonso Galindo, his is bestmexicopetmovers.com. And he does the same thing, but he gives you a little bit more personal service. I would recommend him before the other people, but that would be my best thing. Is maybe even because you said you were planning to drive. You know what? This guy will come pick you up and you can enjoy the drive down to Mexico. The other thing is he keeps track. He goes through Laredo, one of the places I say not to travel through by yourself if you don't know. If you're experienced, yes. But he's experienced. He knows what's going on. He keeps track of everything. So Sergio, we love your local crime until people make the comment, even USA is dangerous. We miss your excellent local points. We thank you. You know, LJ, one thing that I have to mention here is one thing that I really need to mention here is that what we need to do, and I speak about this, actually, I didn't really speak about this in my last video, but one of the topics in my last video about cost of living was that, and I'm not trying to put down any YouTubers or anything in any of this, but one of the things that got me to thinking was this one YouTuber brings up these statistics. He's very famous for this. He's very good at research. He doesn't live in Mexico anymore, but he's very good at it. And he says, you know, according to statistics, middle class make this much money and upper middle class make this much money. And the problem that we get into is that you need to understand there's more to this than statistics. There's the culture. There's the way things are going. You know, when this person was talking about, well, if you make this much money, you're in the Mexican middle class. Well, the Mexican middle class, one of the things that you need to point out that the Mexican middle class is not, you can't compare the Mexican middle class with the U.S. middle class. The Mexican middle class is totally different. So when we start trying to make assumptions, that's when we get in trouble. And it's the same thing with safety. You have to get the whole picture. Even I've heard these comments, well, as long as you're not involved in the cartel, you're fine. Well, yeah, that is true. And I'm not saying it's inaccurate, just like the statistics aren't inaccurate. But at the same time, if you're going down the wrong place or the wrong road at the wrong hour, you're going to get stopped by the cartel. I hate to tell you this, and you're going to a certain place, you're going to get stopped. No questions asked. You are going to get stopped. Just knowing the place that you shouldn't be going through, knowing the hour that you shouldn't be going through, and knowing the place you shouldn't be going through, it should be what you're looking at. Not, oh, well, the cartels don't. Do you see what I'm coming from? You have to understand the culture. You have to understand the local. You have to understand the reality. The problem that this YouTuber has is it's all based on statistics, and it sounds great, just the facts. But the problem is he misses the cultural point. That individual never left the Riviera Maya area. He doesn't know what works in Mérida doesn't work in San Miguel. What works in San Miguel doesn't work in Monterrey. There are cultural differences here in Mexico that you really need to understand before you start comparing things and trying to use statistics to prove a point. And the same thing goes for the United States. Steffi, second question, Ernie. A retired ex-federal employee, do I need a stateside address? Can I just use a Mexican? I'll tell you what I do, Steffi, at being a retired federal employee. If you can give me a second just to get a drink of water here. Sorry, I forgot to unmute it. The thing I do, Steffi, is I do have a stateside address. There's different ways to do it. I have it with family members. Also, I have a house in Monterrey. I'm 2.5 hours away from my brother-in-law's house that lives in McAllen, Texas. So I can travel there to get my mail, or he comes down here to Monterrey. And also, there's several mail forwarding services. I know in San Miguel, there's one called La Conexión, where you can send things to a Laredo address, like literally have a Laredo address, a street address. They send it there, and then they forward your mail to San Miguel de Allende, and you have an actual box there in San Miguel de Allende. You can have packages sent there too. So I have an address of record because I still have my retirement stuff going there. I have everything online with OPM. So I really rarely get any notices, but I still get stuff mailed to me if I make a direct deposit stuff. Things aren't totally paperless yet. Also, my insurance requires, because they mail checks to me when they reimburse me, my health insurance. And so what I do is I have a U.S. address. Probably that's the best thing to do. I've never really heard of anybody using your Mexico address. Now, if you have a family member that can forward your mail to you, whatever, that'd be the best bet. But there are mail forwarding services. There's even mail forwarding services that'll scan your mail, and you tell them which ones to throw away, and then you tell them which ones to forward to you, and they'll forward them to you in Mexico. There's several mail forwarding services, and that's what I would use if you don't have somebody to keep a stateside address. Yevi Yasa, Finland, from Finland. Welcome. I hope Yevi Yasov. I hope I'm I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yevi Yasa, is it safe enough for non-Spanish speakers to live in towns near Tepic or Nayarit? I'm not too familiar with Nayarit. I know it's a popular expat destination. You know, one of the things that Nayarit is kind of located in between a couple of those areas that are not really desirable in a sense per se for safety, but you should be fine as long as you stick to be honest with you, in Tepic and Nayarit, I would stick to the expat communities. You should be fine. Living locally would be a little bit harder than living maybe in a place like San Miguel or the more touristy areas like the Riviera Maya. Also, the language barrier may be a little bit tougher in those areas than you might find in places like San Miguel or maybe the Riviera Maya area, where you have a dense population of expats or foreigners. So Anna, for moving stuff. Yeah, Anna, and I know what you're going to, the next, I'm going to bring it up. Don't you need a maneja? It's called a maneje de casa. It's not maneje de casa from the consulate, and do it within 60 working days. Missed that window. Yes, you can still get a maneja. A maneje de casa is a one-time import of all your stuff, but you have to go to a consulate. You get a certificate. What will happen a lot of times? Sometimes these movers will do it for you. You give them all the serial numbers, all the stuff, all the inventory. They'll do it for you. You pay them a price, of course. They'll do the maneje de casa for you. Some of them will do the import paperwork for you. The problem with shipping stuff, just shipping stuff, is that more than likely it'll get tied up at customs, and customs are going to want a fee, and they'll tell you to get a customs broker to get it out of there. So I know Gringos R Us got a laptop taken at customs, not realizing when it got shipped back it was going to get detained, and it got detained, and it was more hassles than it was worth to get it out of there. I can give you an example of a person that left some Oakley sunglasses back home, very expensive Oakley sunglasses, and his parents decided, oh, I'll just ship them back to Mexico and FedEx. And FedEx, they shipped it, and FedEx said that'll be 2,000 pesos, and he's like, what? For what? For your package? Why? Why am I giving you 2,000 pesos? Like you're bribing, and I have to pay you a bribe to give you my package? And he said, no, that was the customs import duties. And he was like, okay, so I have to pay you over 100 and close to 120 bucks or 150 bucks to get my sunglasses back. And those sunglasses are like 10 years old, and they're not even worth 150 bucks anymore. They were expensive at the time. He said, yep. And so he had to give him 150 bucks to get his sunglasses that weren't even worth 150 bucks. So you have to be very careful with shipping stuff. Rick Brown, U.S. Senator LJ, agree with Ernie. We just had another shooting last night here in Hawaii. One person killed. My point is that you have to be vigilant wherever you are, like Ernie points out. Thank you, Rick, for reassuring that. Yeah, Steffi, you decided to drive, but sell. I decided not to drive, but sell a car instead and buy Mexico. Thanks for your best Mexico movers. Yes, that's now. I don't know about this best Mexico movers that I just showed you the the website, but I think it's best. Let me see if I can find the best Mexico. But the pet movers, I know they have an actual van. Now they have a Facebook page. Now I can bring up their Facebook page. Let me see here. This is Best Mexico Pet Movers. This is their bestmexicopetmovers.com. Okay. So let's go over to their. This is their website. Best Mexico Pet Movers. Now, I do know that they started out. This is the one that I'm talking about. And they're located out of Merida. They started off moving pets, but as if you can see here, they have cargo transport, and they'll actually transport you too. There's a person in the back that they're transporting. They're also certified to move your pets and to move your stuff. He'll even pick up your stuff for you. So this is probably the best. I know these people. I know the owner of this place personally. He's just increased his fleet to 2. He's always busy. He's always traveling. So it's best. It's MexicoPetMovers.com. MexicoPetMovers.com. So let me go back here. And they'll move you too. He'll move you too. He'll pick you up and he'll move you. So you might even save on a plane. You might be able to get all your stuff in the van and everything, and not even have to fly down. You can, and he stops in all the. He knows all the best eating locations on the route in the United States and in Mexico. So you're going to have a very rich culinary experience when you get down here. Actually, I met up with him and somebody that he moved from Merida to San Miguel not too long ago. Too many people waste Ernie's time. Nobody wastes my time. I'll make that clear. Because I always say there's nothing, but yes, it is true. Constantly virtual signaling in comment, and I didn't mean to LJ to say you're wrong, but what I mean by nobody wastes my time is especially with these, is that hey, when I say nobody wastes my time, is ask me anything you want. No, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And virtually in comments about how other places are dangerous too. Yeah, I understand. And I think Rick was, and calm down, LJ, I consider, yeah, Rick. I don't think Rick had bad intentions, LJ. And actually, I don't want to get into any arguments here. I think Rick was just bringing home a comment, bringing home the idea that I was trying to get across. And so I got another question here. Hi, and I'm not taking any sides here, but I think we're good. I think everybody understands, and I think Rick understands where you're coming from, LJ, and I think the same. And I think we both are echoing what I'm trying to help stress my points here. Parallel O'Shea, hi Ernie, health insurance question. We purchased a home in Puerto Vallarta area. We had planned to retire there in the next 2 years, but my husband was diagnosed with head and neck cancer. Okay. Now, here's the Parallel O'Shea. I'm in the same boat, so I'm following here. Exactly happened to me. Exactly what you're talking about. We have completed all the treatments, which I did. Well, actually I did, but I did it here in Mexico with a clean bill of health. But now have concern health insurance coverage in Mexico moving forward. We're finding it hard to find information on. And then let me see here. He has completed all treatments, and we are cancer free, but it seems that we may not be able to get health insurance now. Perla, here's the thing. I was able to get health insurance. I have the same exact issue. If you go back to my videos, I'll tell you, I think the videos, how Mexico saved my life. I was diagnosed with head and neck cancer. I actually, the U.S. health system failed me. I got diagnosed with head and neck cancer. And actually, the weird thing was that it was supposed to be just be a cyst, and it turned out cancer. I went through the radiation. I got a clean bill of health. Now, I was 52 years old when that happened. So I was in a better position to get, I don't know how old your husband is, but we have a personal friend that manages the insurance. I do have a Mexican policy as well as a U.S. policy through my retirement. I have used my U.S., I haven't really used my Mexican policy, but we decided in case of an accident or whatever, I have to pay out of pocket with my U.S. insurance, and it can get expensive. So we went ahead and got a Mexican policy. One of the things to note is pre-existing conditions is a big deal here. When I applied, I was able to apply, but they excluded anything that had to do with head and neck cancer. So any cancer. So if I get any kind of cancer, I cannot use my Mexican insurance for whatever reason. And I had to wait a year with a clean bill of health before they would even look at me to insure me. Now, I have tried to change insurances because we thought that this other insurance was a little bit cheaper, and they wouldn't even accept me. The thing that I would advise you to do, Perla, there's two things that the health insurance companies will do. They'll either exclude you from a condition, or three, exclude you from a condition, charge you more on your premium, or three, exclude you altogether. It's very hard. And IMSS is really, if you have that condition, you're already excluded from IMSS. You can't, you'll never be able to get onto the public healthcare system. So it's a matter of really shopping around with different shopping around with different insurance agents. We got to PR several years ago. Can we still use the Menaje de Casa for one of our one-time import? You should be able to. I think, yes, you do. If I'm not mistaken, you have to look in it. I have to look into the Menaje de Casa. We did it through a mover. So, and we did it, and I believe you still have to do it within 6 months, to be honest with you. That if you did it several years ago, you would have to check with it. And here's the other thing with Menaje de Casa. My sister-in-law tried to do it. She went there, and they wouldn't give it to her, even with an input. And my sister-in-law is very, very, very detail-oriented, my sister-in-law. And it depends on what consulate you go to, but I think you have to do it within the 6 months, to be honest with you. But what I would do, Anna, there are several movers that can basically, there's several ways to do. Customs brokers can say that it's basically, if it's household goods, they can actually, they'll charge you an import duty, but they're used and it's not as much. That's one thing that I wouldn't, you can still do it. It's just not, you're not going to get it totally free. And you would probably going to have to pay somebody to do it. But there's ways of, and I know that people have moved stuff. I mean, we've moved stuff from the United States, and we just have to pay an extra little fee apart from the shipping. And there's a lot of companies that do it for expats here. Paolo O'Shea, thanks for the info, advice, how we can contact you. Perla, the best way to contact me offline, I've got a video that says how to do the free Zoom consultations. I do free Zoom consultations for 1 hour. But if you remember this email address, the bottom line of the video, so you don't have to watch the whole thing, is if you send an email to info@retiredlifeinmexiconoble.com. And then you either request a, now remember that's for my free consultations. Sometimes I'll answer, if it's a simple question, I can answer it and I'll email you back. If it's a matter of a consultation, I do reserve that. It's kind of an automated mailbox, so sometimes I don't get back to it right away. And as a matter of fact, I got 1 or 2 emails sitting in there with questions that are a couple of weeks old that I need to get back to. But if it requires, if you want a free consultation, all you do is you introduce yourself, why you want one, and when you would be available, and then I set you up on I have a calendar, an online calendar scheduling system where you can get set up for that. If I can answer your question, it's real simple to answer, not a problem. I'll email you back. Oh, Lisa, sorry to see that you missed it. Hopefully you'll be able to see it back. Go back and see it again. We're almost up for time, but I got one more question here, or one more comment. I have a Mexico-U.S. dual citizenship, but never spent time in Mexico. Had a Mexican passport or filed a tax return with SAT. In my 60s, considering retirement in Mexico, but concerned about taxes as an accidental Mexican. Actually, Umbrella, what I'm going to tell you here right now, first of all you need to do as a dual citizenship, well, you need to update your passport, your INE, or get an INE if you don't have one. And you're a Mexican citizen, so you can come back and forth. You can live in Mexico. You don't have to worry about residency. What you do as SAT is, all you need to do is you get your RFC. And once you get your RFC, what you basically do with your RFC is there's a constancia. The constancia means your fiscal situation. In other words, like you pay taxes, you're working, you're retired. And your constancia would be retired. And as long as your source of pension income doesn't come from Mexico, then you have no obligation to pay taxes through tax treaties with the United States. So basically, your constancia will be retired with no fiscal responsibilities for taxes, and that's all. You don't have to worry about having to file a tax return here in Mexico, unless you start making money here, or unless you sell a house here. Then you have capital gains tax. But even then, when you sell a house, there's certain ways around the capital gains. It's just the same as back in the United States. I think if it's your homestead, or you had it for more than a certain amount of time, you don't have to pay capital gains. But household items, import taxes in Sweden are extremely high. Not sure, but have heard 60s of the new cost. Actually, Ray, what I would do on any kind of import of household goods is talk to a good mover and a good customs broker that can get around that. We have a friend here in Querétaro that deals with moving stuff, and I do have a good friend that's building a studio that has a lot of very high-end, very rare vintage equipment that he needs to bring into Mexico to San Miguel to put in his studio. And we were talking to a friend of ours that does transport work, and that friend was saying, well, we can actually transport that vintage equipment because it's like sold like from the 70s and the 80s as decorations or as different things. We can declare them as different things. And they have this transport person. She deals with commercial transport, but said we can get around a lot of those things. So if you try to do it yourself, yeah, you're probably going to pay the 60 or 70% of the new cost. It's not really, when we come across, let me tell you, if we have a bunch of stuff in the back of our car, it's 16% for your VAT taxes, and it's usually 16% of exactly what you said, the new cost. But if you have receipts that you bought it for something else less, that's why I always tell people, I had to give somebody advice about that not too long ago about crossing a bunch of stuff because they bought a bunch of stuff on Amazon. I said, save the receipts. Usually if it's used stuff and you're crossing, they'll let you go. But if they insist that you need to pay the duties, you have the receipts and they have to charge you on the receipts, not on what they think that the thing was new. So if you bought something on eBay for $20 and you can prove you bought it for $20, that's what they charge you the taxes on, and you get an allowance. So let's say you bring in your two of you are traveling, you and your wife. Your allowance on the land border is $300 a piece. Flying is $500. So let's say you come through across the land border, $600, but you have $1,000 worth of stuff. You pay taxes on $400 worth of the stuff. So, but if you're bringing in a whole bunch of household goods, I would suggest getting a hold of movers that handle with customs brokers. Depending, they can declare certain things differently. They know how to declare the things so that you don't have to pay that 60 or 70%. Now, you will have to pay a customs broker fee, or you're going to have to pay for let's say it's going to cost you $2,000 to bring your household goods. It may cost you an extra $1,000 to take care of all the taxes and import duties. But I guarantee you're going to pay a lot less than if you try to do it yourself. Anna, what if your pension is not permanent, but you're a U.S. citizen and already pay taxes? See, that's part of the tax treaty. Would you have to pay taxes and make? No, Anna. Actually, here's the thing. You're a U.S. citizen. You pay taxes in the U.S. There's a tax treaty with the U.S. up to a certain amount, though. Now, trust me, if you're getting a pension, you're not close to the amount. But up to a certain amount, you do not have to pay taxes. You already pay taxes in another country. That's the reason for the tax treaty. Because of the fact that you pay taxes in the U.S., and your constancia will be that you're retired with no physical responsibility to Mexico. So you don't have to pay taxes in Mexico on your pension. And it doesn't matter where your pension comes from. One thing, United States does tax. And here's the thing. If you make Mexico income, for whatever reason, if you make Mexico income, you have to pay Mexican taxes, right? Let's say you rent and you have to pay Mexican taxes. You still have to report it on your U.S. taxes, but you get a tax credit for that tax that you paid in Mexico. So you technically don't have to pay the tax in the United States, but you have to report it. Here in Mexico, it's not that way. You don't have to report it. But if you pay taxes in the U.S., you don't have a tax liability here. So I'm going to wrap it up because we already at 1 hour and 30 minutes. I usually try to keep it to 1 hour. So I want to thank everybody for showing up. Our next live stream, I guess we'll talk about the cost of living and the realities of the cost of living here in Mexico. Thank you very much for showing up. And thank you very much for your time. We had a great session. I love these sessions. Everybody, I love the fact that everybody participates, we're all here to help each other. So thank you guys for showing up. And as I always say, until next time, stay safe and stay informed.